it's recording, so.
All right. Bro, the traffic was because a trucker stopped on both lanes and broke down.
Stopped in both lanes and broke down.
So, you know how
He didn't go in the shoulder?
if you're going 287 and you need to get onto the exit to get onto 78, you know those two meet?
Mm-hmm.
He broke down with it meet. And so you had to go around it, but nobody knew because of the hill that we had to get around him. So there was all this gap in front of him. We were all just stopped for 5 minutes doing jack shit.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. Pretty fire. All right. Do you want to introduce us, or how do you want to do this?
Yeah, let's, this is the Nate and Will podcast. We are talking about sports representation in the media today.
We talk about all things sports, sports related, sports adjacent, sport vertical, sport horizontal, everything you can think of.
Sport perpendicular.
Nate and I have probably discussed it before class, after class, made jokes about each other, how good or bad the Seahawks will be, how good or bad the Bills will be. So
Sinners.
let's get right into it. Do you have anything you wanted to bring up that we did, or any research that we were talking about earlier?
Just kind of how the NFL is trying to lighten their image up a little bit with kind of like the Walter Payton Man of the Year award.
Ooh, that's a good take. I didn't even think about that. A lot when you consider NFL personalities outside of the actual playing, you see guys like Justin Tucker, Deshaun Watson, the two guys that don't do a lot of good outside the NFL, and then you see players competing for the Walter Payton Award.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if everybody knows what that is, but would you want to explain what that is?
The Walter Payton Man of the Year award was initially made for Walter Payton Walter Payton. He was a great running back. He did great things on the field, but he also did a lot of good things off of the field, which is kind of like why the award was made. And it's to honor not only Walter Payton, but the person who wins it every year. So
What do you have to do to win it?
you have to be an upstanding citizen. You can't be a Justin Tucker. You have to be kind of like a Josh Allen, Eric Armstead type of guy, where you're in the community helping out other people and donating.
So are these normally for people that are volunteering, or they have their own charities or something?
Like they have their own charities. One I know is a player, Chenano Osu. He raises money for people that live in Nigeria, his home country. So
it's sweet.
yeah, it's
So
pretty sick.
why would the NFL? What is the NFL doing that wants to raise their public opinion, and how does the media criticizing the NFL if they don't do that?
The NFL is currently facing a little bit of backlash because of lack of punishment for some of the players, especially when the Deshaun Watson stuff came out.
Oh, okay.
He only got so many games suspended for doing something that should allegedly doing something that could land someone life in prison.
I did know that there's a ton of backlash on the Rashee Rice handling of when Rashee Rice, a little bit of backstory. Rashee Rice is a Kansas City Chiefs wide receiver who was involved in street racing and the death of someone in a motor accident. I think he was going over 100 miles an hour in a Lamborghini. And not just a year before that, there was a player on the Raiders, Henry Ruggs III, who was drunk driving at 140 and killed someone, and he got obviously jail time, and he got suspended off the team. He was severely injured, but Rashee Rice was allowed to play the entirety of the season until he got hurt, and there's been no word on his trial or anything. And there's a live video just like the Henry Ruggs case, but there was no backlash or anything, and he was not suspended. But there were other players who were betting on sports who got suspended for 6 games or whatever.
For the entire, indefinitely too. And then you look
That's
at some
true.
of these other guys that, potentially killed people, and it's they only get, 10 game suspensions? And
Yeah.
this guy's indefinitely suspended for gambling.
And I think it's how the media frames players. And so when you look at, a Josh Allen versus a Henry Ruggs, the media framed Josh Allen as a hero. He is a homegrown boy who had no offers out of high school, went to go play JUCO, which is junior college football, which is when you go to a community college for 2 years and then transfer out to a bigger school, and you only use your last 2 years of eligibility to play. And he went from a JUCO with no stars, went to Wyoming, which also isn't a big school. It's a Power 5 conference, and he led them to a Mountain West win, and then got drafted top 10 overall to the Bills. And then the story's ever been since. He had no offers at all, no looks. But then you look at Henry Ruggs, who started at at Bama,
Yeah.
got drafted in the first round by the Raiders, and then threw his life away. But it just looks how the media frames these guys, where Josh Allen is the hero, but then these guys are the villains. But then the villains don't get punishment, and then some of the villains get punishment, and then it just happened to be that the guy was on the Chiefs, Rashee Rice. So the Chiefs are like framed as the bad guys, and then they're framed as the bad guys because they're going for 3 wins in 3 years, and it's just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's really interesting to look at when you see it on TikTok, when you see all the edits or anything. You're ever seeing where it's Obi-Wan Kenobi versus Vader, and it's Vader is always attributed with like the team nobody wants to win. Like sometimes it's the Ravens, sometimes it's the Chiefs, most times it's the Browns, Deshaun Watson, and then on the Obi-Wan Kenobi side, it's like all the other teams, all the fans, even people that aren't even attributed to football at all. Like you'll have like Barack Obama sometimes as like a symbol of faith and peace and everything, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Truly is an interesting time we're living in for sports media because there's just so many media outlets putting out different stories and false narratives about players sometimes.
That is true. That is true.
And rumors circulate, and people just believe rumors just like that. They believe anything they see on the internet nowadays. It's sad.
The one thing that actually got me was in the draft, the Bills drafted a edge rusher, Landon Jackson, from I think
Arkansas.
Arkansas, yes, Arkansas. I was gonna say South Carolina, but that was T.J. Sanders. That was our pick, the second round pick.
Yeah.
But Landon Jackson
Landon Jackson.
Having 2 first names should be a crime. First off, having 2 first names shouldn't be a thing. However, he has alopecia, but he has no hair. I got a TikTok edit saying that he passed away after the draft, which was horrible because an actual player's mom passed away after he was drafted. So I had thought that we drafted a guy in the 3rd round who had just passed away, and I was like, what's going on? And then I talked to you the day after, and you were like, no, he's alive. Like I don't know what you're talking about. I was like, what do you mean he died? I was just, there should be some regulation on this. I shouldn't have to ask other people if someone has passed away that was drafted or is in the NFL or something like that. There should be more regulation.
Yeah, but that was on TikTok, and they have like little to no regulation.
That's true, but like, you ever go across those pages where it's like, it has the ESPN like profile photo, and then the handle is like fake ESPN news, but it has like the same font, the same style. It's almost nearly identical, except that the parody is just on that handle. But they have a blue check. They are verified. So if you don't read the tag or anything, you think it's ESPN, and that's what I saw. I saw that and was like, ESPN is reporting that my guy died.
Yeah.
And so then I think my question in all this is, where does parody end when you're portraying fake news about these athletes? Because this can have detrimental effects, not just on the audience thinking that their favorite players passed away or their favorite players in some random news, but maybe
the player's family, maybe.
He's a player's family, the player themselves. What do you think?
There has to be some regulation, but there's nothing we can really do besides try and get the content taken down, or try and get like Instagram or TikTok to try and take action against these parodies. But then again, people would be mad at that because you're taking away a right of theirs to freely post online whatever they want with no consequences.
That's true. It's just tough because there's definitely some new. Like I then scrolled through that page and found some pretty funny things where it was like Derrick Rose is making a comeback. He's unretiring. He got his knee back together. Derrick Rose is a very famous what if case where he tore his ACL. He tore everything in his knee basically, but it was the youngest MVP in the NBA ever. He went to Memphis too. Not even like a big basketball school. Memphis is kind of a big basketball school, but like when you think of like a basketball school, you're thinking of like UNC, you're thinking of Kentucky. But Derrick Rose comes out of Memphis and for the Bulls wins MVPs, and he's the youngest MVP ever. I think he's like 21 years old. He's younger than me. He's a little older than you.
Yeah, like 2 years older than me at that time.
It's just crazy. It's crazy to think about. But he was never the same player after he got hurt, and so he's like 34 now or something like that. But just seeing that on that fake news thing was really funny. But I guess what I'm saying is there should be a level of what parity should happen with this. I don't think you should joke about death. But then there's other things when death is it's a slippery slope.
Very slippery slope. But on that slippery slope, there's also the truths of the matter that just aren't being acknowledged, and maybe they are being acknowledged, but they can't be acknowledged with the government. Like, did the glove fit? Your favorite Bills running back.
You're talking about the greatest Bills running back to ever play.
Yep.
O.J. Simpson.
One of
the greatest football players of all time.
It's safe to say he won't win a Man of the Year award. And he had a detrimental effect on media, just whether it was in the form of a book or online. It's been an ongoing mystery for a while.
Hey, everybody forgets he's the first running back in history to rush for over 2,000 yards. I mean, in the least amount of games. Also a player I would say is the greatest what if.
Yes.
What if he just never got that media attention for anything? Because I can't say what if he never killed anybody, because that means he killed somebody. But I can't say what if he did,
yeah.
That's a slippery slope.
If he never got that negative media attention, I don't think we would have ever had all these news stories coming out about him and what he's done.
We wouldn't have the Kardashians, really.
Why do you say that?
Because the guy that represented O.J. Simpson is directly related to the Jenners and the Kardashians, and that's when it first got their name in the media. That's a side note.
That's an interesting take right there.
Well, because also you wouldn't get the Tristan Thompson drama as well with Courtney. I think I don't know them at all, but that is actually true. Is that the guy that represented O.J. Simpson in that trial? I don't remember which family it is, but has a direct relation with either the Kardashians or the Jenners. It's the Kardashians. It's the Kardashians. Because the Jenners' mom, who was previously male, transitioned later in life, was the Olympic athlete. So it was Kardashian's dad. But hey, great running back, horrible human being. Because the character of the player is magnified after they play. And so that all happens, right? He's then tried in civil court. He does not do well in civil court. And then just before he passed away, I want to say within the past 5-6 years of that, he got arrested for robbing a place. So even if he didn't, even if in this whole thing the glove didn't fit, he was acquitted of everything. Even if because of the unjust what happened, he still's an awful guy.
Yeah,
he still committed other crimes. So it's with me looking at that. Even though I jokingly said the greatest Bills running back of all time, he's not a great guy.
Yeah, it's not
a great guy. But other players that I think have been unfairly portrayed in the media, being framed not as villains, but as framed as not what I think they should be framed as, is Lamar Jackson, Colin Kaepernick, all those guys. Because if you look at a white quarterback, their plays are labeled as intelligent or high IQ, or they made a good read. And then you look at what people say about Lamar Jackson or Colin Kaepernick or even RG3 when they played. They were shifty, they were athletic, they were fast. They never were labeled as smart, which I think is unfair. And it actually is, in a couple studies, it's shown that the white quarterbacks versus the black quarterbacks have different verbiage for both of them. And, dude, Josh Allen, great guy. I would kill to have Lamar Jackson. That guy is crazy. You have to read a defense so well to be able to run the runs he is doing. I think if we look at all the best quarterbacks, I think Lamar Jackson's number one. Then it's Pat Mahomes. Then it's Josh. Then it's Hurts. And then that's it. Nobody else matters.
All right.
That's the top four. He is so good. Now Pat Mahomes he's in a great team. He's in a great system. He's always had a good team around him. But those wide receivers make it They're
I
always
heard
changing.
supposed to air the ball out more this season, right?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they didn't try and trade for George Pickens there.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Major update today. As of today, Cowboys got George Pickens from the Steelers after the Steelers have a generational decline into disaster.
Their best receivers on the team are DK Metcalf and Calvin Austin. They did resign Van
I
Jefferson.
forgot about DK Metcalf going to the Steelers. Oh, L baby. That's okay though. Bills have no wide receivers of any name.
Hey, we snatched them from you guys.
I know. We wanted DK, but we
All of a
got
sudden, Cooper Kupp and DK. You didn't get either.
no, but we got a Bosa.
Yeah, is he gonna catch a pass?
No, he's gonna make sure you don't throw a pass.
That's fair. That's fair.
We're gonna bring back Bounty Gate.
Bounty Gate. It's a very.
That's another one that was weirdly represented in the media.
Is that with the Saints or?
I was with 3 different teams because it was caught. It was caught with the Saints, but so Bounty Gate is there's a defensive coordinator for the Saints in the mid 2000s, right?
Yeah, mid 2000s around there.
Where he would pay his defensive players for every injury they would cause to the opposing team, and so they were basically had paid incentives to give people concussions, break limbs, injuries, do irresponsible damage, and when you're tackling a 200-pound man going almost 20 miles an hour, you have to tackle him the right way, or you are increasing the damage to yourself. There's been now rules passed that you can't lead with the helmet. It's targeting because you're now bringing more damage to your skull and your brain. There have been a ton of players who have committed suicide with CTE. That's a whole different media ball game
That's a whole
with
thing.
the NFL silencing studies and everything, and all the movies that were made for it. But Bountygate relates to a specifically defensive coordinator who was leaked that he was paying his players on the Saints, and they found him doing the same thing on the Redskins, which is now the Commanders, and then also on the Browns. And so it was 3 different teams that were leaked that we were paid to hurt people. And if you watch the defensive game of the Saints in that era of Bountygate, it is so obvious after hearing the what was happening behind the scenes. It is absurd.
It very much is. You would never hear a story like that today. That would just not go under the radar. I think that's just because so much media coverage with the Hard Knocks being out too. With just so much media coverage in locker rooms, just in front offices, and even on GMs and head coaches, defensive coordinators, OCs.
I would argue that because of the media's involvement in almost all the day-to-day lives of all these athletes, we weren't going to have big stories like Bountygate anymore.
No.
Because there's nothing that you can't really hide.
You can't hide it.
There's no privacy. And to that extent, is that good? Is that bad? Is it good that they don't have any privacy? That they're always under the scrutiny of being a good moral figure for the public?
I mean, in a way, yeah, but then the media is going to try and uncover some drama that might be happening, and then it's just well, why are you getting into these players' personal lives?
That's true.
Because then it gets to a whole different level. They need some privacy. They're still in the face of everybody on the media, but they still need some personal privacy. They're humans at the end of the day, so media can have a negative effect on some of these players, I think.
Do you think there should be a hard rule of where that privacy starts and ends? If they're on the field or if they're in the stadium, does that privacy end? If they're in a locker room or anything like that?
No, in the locker room, they're filmed in the locker rooms.
Yeah.
That needs to just immediately put to an end. You can't wait till the press conference to talk to these guys.
That's true.
You have to be in the locker room where they're changing and stuff. Maybe having a personal conversation with a teammate. Maybe if you're filming the head coach talking about we deserve this win and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But if it's not that, then why are you to ask them something you can ask at a press conference?
What I'm getting at is that the younger Bosa, I forget his first name.
Nick
was wearing a MAGA hat on I think it was Thanksgiving.
I think it was Thanksgiving.
And he got so much scrutiny for his political beliefs for wearing that hat.
I believe you also got fined, right?
You got fined so much money. But I'm saying that like that privacy ends on national television.
Mm-hmm.
But does he need to get fined for showing a political message on it? I would assume yes.
I think where the NFL stands on that it probably should for all political messages, because they don't, again with Palestine and Israel, they try to get away from that stuff too, because it's political and they don't like politics that much because they're football. It doesn't have to be about politics.
So then if he wore the hat in like the locker room, would he be gotten fined?
I think he would have.
Interesting.
With how the NFL is, I think he would have.
Interesting. It's a slippery slope. Again, discussing privacy and all that. I think because he was on national television, there's more of an outcry for that. Mm-hmm. So I think it was deserved to have that fine if you're displaying like that, like on national television. But like if he's, I couldn't care less if he does it in his own home. So like if he does that in his own home,
who cares?
He doesn't get fined. Yeah. If he does it in like an office in the team, it's up to the team to decide if he gets fined. Like if he's wearing a political message in like the training rooms off site. But when it gets to the stadium where that's considered like a public space with a huge audience and everything, what part of that stadium is considered no more privacy? Definitely on the field. But like in a booth, like there's thousands of rooms in a stadium. Does every room get that privacy or whatever? I don't think there's a single room that doesn't have a camera. Except for the locker room.
Maybe. And that's a big maybe.
Yeah. So, like, I think, should the media be banned from certain spots in the stadiums? They're definitely not allowed to go to the bathroom and be like, so, what are we working over here with? Or something like that. But, like the locker room, I think they should also be banned from that, like you said. But, like, is there other spots?
In the stadium, not that I could think of, because, like, they're in all the usual spots, like the tunnel and stuff. Just the only outlier to me is the locker room, and I haven't seen any reports of them recording people in the bathroom.
That would be insane. That would be Bountygate 2.0.
That would be like national media.
That would be crazy. The amount of memes that you get from that. It was almost like the Mike Tyson slip up when they were doing they were filming the fighters.
Yeah, that Mike Tyson fight, though, that was all over the media for, like, a month when it was announced. I mean,
it's
just, like, it's Mike Tyson versus, like, a 20-year-old guy, or, like, however old that idiot is.
He's got to be in his 20s.
He's in his, like, maybe, like...
He's not in his 30s.
No, he's not in his 30s yet. But, I mean, that got so much media attention, and I don't think it should have. That was probably a bad thing that got media attention. And... just affecting the media, that like the media's portraying all these bad things, and it's like, well, why are we only showing bad things? There's good things happening too. Like, I mean, sure, it's a big name, but he's like in his 50s.
He's old.
You don't want to give, like, a guy like Jake Paul, you don't want to give that guy attention.
Wait, how old is Mike Tyson?
He's like in his 50s.
Dude, George Foreman won the heavyweight belt at 54. He's the oldest ever winner at 54. The man that invented the grill.
It's fair, but again, Mike Tyson's been in and out of boxing. It's not like he's been consistently boxing, but
it's a whole nother sport where it frames the heroes and the villains. Because like Floyd Money Mayweather wasn't always Money Mayweather. I forget his original nickname, but the guy had like a great upbringing, and then he made bajillions, and then he got this whole different attitude, which is why they named him Money Mayweather. And then the biggest fight he got the biggest scrutiny for, and I'm a horrible boxing fan because I don't know the name of the guy that he fought, but they touched gloves, and he immediately went for a quick jab. He knocked the guy out because they were like, it was like the 8th or 9th round, and he was on the ropes. And Money Mayweather comes in, and they're like, "Oh, yeah, touch gloves." And the guy's hands are still down. He's just a full sheer force rips him in the face. The guy was down, and then he's like, "All right, that's it. I won. Game."
Yeah, there you go.
Like, that's horrible. And then you look at Manny Pacquiao, who's a 7-time winner in 7 different weight classes, and then also served as governor in the Philippines. Great guy.
I agree.
Great guy.
But I'm gonna backtrack a little bit here, but CTE, I don't think it gets so much media attention in the NFL, but brain damage, especially in the like WWE and boxing, MMA, all that stuff, it's a big thing. You see some of these guys like,
Oh yeah.
I saw a video of this one boxer who got hit so hard in the back of the neck on a cheap shot that he couldn't even speak. He was wheelchair destined.
This is gonna sound horrible. I think professional fighters and professional entertainers on WWE kind of know the risks.
They do know the risks.
Because you're entering the ring and you know that even though you have padded gloves or whatever, and sometimes you're like in MMA you're allowed to kick, but in boxing you're not. You know what's gonna happen. You know that you're gonna get punched in the face, kicked in the face. That something's gonna happen. The idea behind CTE in football wasn't accepted because one, the NFL didn't want people to know that playing football and getting hit continuously can kill you, and two, they were like, "Oh, we're wearing pads. You shouldn't get hurt. We wear a helmet. If you wear a helmet, you're invincible. If you were to wear a helmet and get into a fist fight with someone, you would feel more confident in taking a hit than if you weren't wearing a helmet and you got into a fist fight. You would want to dodge more. You would want to slip a little bit. Maybe fight a little more conservatively. If you're wearing a helmet and you're tackling someone, you couldn't give a shit because it's like, what's gonna happen? I'm wearing a helmet. I've got pads. I'm not gonna feel anything.
Yeah.
And so like, I think it's because the reason why CTE isn't as talked about in fighting is because I think it's already been accepted.
I think that's a very interesting point, but even in the NFL, the players talk about it, and they say to like reporters, "We know the risks when we're playing the game. We see it happen all the time." But the reporters don't really follow up on that. They're just trying to get a reaction out of these players, like, "Oh yeah, it's terrible, blah blah blah." Yeah, it's terrible, but we're playing the game and we know the risks.
Yeah, they want to sensationalize everything.
Yeah, the media wants to.
They want a headline.
They want headlines. They don't want the truth. Sometimes it's just.
Dude, and that's the same thing. If we want to talk about sensationalism, we got to talk about Brittany Griner getting arrested.
yeah.
Getting arrested in Russia for breaking the law.
Which I think we traded like a arms.
Saying traded is crazy, but it is accurate. It is accurate.
We exchanged an arms dealer for Brittany Griner, who was caught breaking the law of another country.
Correct. The guy that we exchanged for is a Russian arms dealer. You know Nicolas Cage, right?
Yeah. No,
you've ever seen the movie Lord of War by Nicolas Cage?
I don't think I have.
It's a movie that depicts the life of the Russian arms dealer we traded away. He was nicknamed the Lord of War because he would sell to every dictator you could think of that we couldn't sell to, which is why we kind of turned a blind eye to him a little bit. He was a little slippery. He was able to do some nefarious things, but we kind of turned a blind eye to him. And there were some embellished acts in the movie, but his real name it's like some Russian guy, but we did call him the Lord of War because he would sell to the Congo, he would sell to all these African rebels, everyone in South America, just great, horrible places. And he had all these connections in Russia because after the Cold War, all of these silos and supplies of weapons were not used anymore because they didn't need them. They didn't need to build up an army anymore. And so he bought all of these on lease basically and then sold them behind. Which is very illegal. You're not allowed to do this. But because we exchanged a guy of that magnitude for a WNBA player who broke the rules, there's already a lot of disrespect to the WNBA players.
I think so as well.
So having that, like, this is all also before Caitlin Clark, who completely revolutionized the idea of women basketball. And it was just crazy. Who has also experienced her own kind of hate inside the WNBA.
But that's inside the WNBA.
Yeah.
The media loves her because, she's a tall white woman and then, like...
That is true. And then Angel Reese is not a tall white woman.
And they're scrutinizing her. But then again, from what I've seen, like, maybe one thing of Angel Reese, like, maybe ditching out an elbow, but it's kind of like a maybe. There are players that do go out of their way to push Caitlin Clark, though.
Yeah.
I haven't seen Angel Reese do it, but I've seen Angel Reese get the most coverage for something that she isn't necessarily doing.
I think she's being unfairly portrayed as a Draymond Green.
Yeah.
I think it's unfair. But back to the Brittany Griner situation. She was arrested when she was traveling through the airports of Russia with a weed vaporizer, which is illegal. You can't have weed in Russia. So she got arrested, and she was held there for a couple of years, right?
I think like a year or two.
Yeah. And then we exchanged this guy for Brittany, and she comes home, and everybody's like, "What the heck? Why are we doing this?" And then it like all this racism started, and everything about WNBA and how it's not profitable, and all this like whatever. And it was just like the media loved it,
Yeah.
because they got to tell the story, and people started hate watching the WNBA, and it's just like,
And then, yeah. That was a whole situation. That was really bad for
Yeah.
WNBA.
really bad. And how does the WNBA recover? Caitlin Clark.
But then again, she is one hell of a player.
Dude, her and Paige, crazy.
Yeah.
Crazy.
They're gonna probably inspire so many young women into playing basketball.
Those two, Angel Reese, and then the number one pick in 2021, who, like, I'm horrible with names, but I do know that there was a team that was really bad for a long time, and they kept getting first-round draft picks. And then from 2021, they were the worst team in the league. In 2022, they won the league. 2023, they won the league. And last year, they won the league. So they're 3-time WNBA champions.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just how it is, and
Why can't the Seahawks do it, man?
more profitable.
Yeah.
More competition. Because
More parity.
more parity, yeah.
More teams are great.
More media attention.
Mm-hmm.
And there's how many teams are in the WNBA? Off the top of my head, I think there's 16.
This is a job for the good old internet.
Yeah, that's Google search away.
How many teams in the WNBA? 13.
13.
That is really small.
So there's your answer. That's why they've
Yeah.
done it more than the Seahawks.
That is crazy. There
You know
are
what?
32 teams in the NFL. There are how many teams are in the NBA? 26? Is it 13 per division?
Might be. I think it might be 26.
Dude, how many NBA teams? 30.
Okay. So
Bro, they dwarf the WNBA in terms of teams, in terms of amount of teams in the league. That's crazy.
that's really crazy.
So if you draft somebody in the WNBA, you really do numbers on how you improve.
yeah,
Because I'm assuming the roster size is kind of the same.
you'd imagine as the NBA it'd be like close, but
Yeah.
some things vary in different areas. But
Like imagine the NBA shrunk to 13 teams.
that would be. I think there would be riots in the streets.
How many because there's an award in the NBA called Sixth Man of the Year. How many of those guys have disappeared? All of them.
Yeah, pretty much.
Peyton Pritchard won this year. He's the sixth man on the Celtics, which is one of the best teams in the league right now. But Peyton Pritchard wouldn't be on the roster.
But you know how many teams would have like super teams
Exactly.
theoretically with how much talent they have? It'd
Well,
be
like-
kind of like survival of the fittest out there.
I would imagine it would be the LA Clippers, Los Angeles Lakers, and I don't know, name another team over there.
My personal team, the Wolves actually. They'd take it. They'd win it every year. They're gonna win it this year too.
The
Wolves in 5.
Timberwolves?
Yeah, Timberwolves in 5.
No shot. They no.
Timberwolves
No.
in 5.
Dude, they're struggling against the Nuggets, dude.
Yeah, last year.
And this year, they lost their first match. They lost their first game.
They're not playing the Nuggets.
Yeah,
They're
they
playing the Golden State Warriors.
Am
You're tripping, man.
I tripping?
Yeah, you're
Who are the Nuggets playing?
Huh?
Who are the Nuggets playing right now?
I have no idea. I only follow it during the postseason.
Oh, you're an awful NBA fan.
I don't watch that much of it. I just watch like the postseason.
All I know is the Knicks beat the Celtics last night because the Celtics missed 45 threes.
And Edwards missed like 23 threes last night. It was bad. But
The Knicks overcame a 20-point deficit.
I saw that.
Crazy.
That is
Crazy.
insanity.
And the only reason why we're talking about them is because it was pushed down my face this morning to view these highlights off of ESPN. There's not a bone in my body that's like, yes, I must watch basketball right now. But because I am getting fed all of this hype from the Knicks, because we live in close relation to the Knicks headquarters, we're New Jersey guys, and the Knicks are a New York team. Like, if I lived in Boston, I'd probably get Boston hype.
Yeah, probably.
But because of this, ESPN and the media are like, yes, the Knicks, go, 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 go.
They do the same thing to me. I have my teams listed on ESPN as well. They give me Knicks and Mets stuff. I'm a Yankees fan, you know? Like,
you want to talk about Mets? Talk about Juan Soto. Talk about Juan Soto.
Dude.
15 years, $765 million.
That's
Most paid player ever.
a very big contract.
And they didn't defer it. Which is gross. Yeah. So deferring a contract is you agree to pay a certain amount of money every year for the first 10, 15 years, and the next 10 or 15 years afterwards, you pay the full amount. And so Shohei Ohtani got a $700 million contract for 10 years, deferred after the next 10 years. So what that equates to is he's getting paid like $10, $20 million every year for the first 10. Then he gets paid the remainder after the next 10. So the Los Angeles Dodgers are trying to, in the next 10 years, have a winning span, which they already have. They already won a World Series. I almost a Super Bowl. They almost won a World. They already won a World Series. So they're hoping that after they pay $600 million to one guy, they also paid like $300 million for a pitcher. They just paid like $40 million for two relievers. Like it's just hand over fist. They spent $1.4 billion last year in signing.
That's honestly crazy to me.
And then you have salary caps in the NFL. Could you imagine how much money would be in the NFL if there was no salary cap and instead did a luxury tax like
The 49ers and the Cowboys would win it every single year.
I don't think so.
Really? What other?
Giants.
Maybe, oh yeah, Giants.
You got to think about the big market teams where like these cities have so much money tied up and the owners want to put more money in. So like Jerry Jones, all he cares about is football. He is their GM. He would put so much money into them. And that's just also because they make so much money off of their own media rights.
And players want to go play for the Cowboys because just of how much media attention it gets.
Yeah.
Like, even with the Giants, I mean, who would want to play under them right now?
They're bad.
They're shit show.
They are bad. But you go to New York.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, Shador Sanders almost had enough hype to get drafted by the Giants because he was playing catch with the receivers in the streets of New York.
Yeah. Malik Neighbors and Shador Sanders playing. That was wild. That was like after the Giants got eliminated from the playoffs. That was wild.
That was while Shador was in New York for the Heisman ceremony for Travis Hunter, but he was playing catch outside of the venue with Malik Neighbors.
And next thing you know, he got drafted to the Browns.
Yeah, that was a crazy slide.
Which
Did you hear actually why he might slip so bad?
the negative media attention.
Well,
The
negative immediate attention that would ensue because of his father.
Oh yeah, his father is nutcase.
But he showed I read an interview from Dable, who is the head coach of the Giants, that when they interviewed Shador, because he was labeled as a first round talent, but like all this stuff happened. He showed up to the interview very arrogant, saying like he already owned the place, whatever, and they gave him like plays, like something that they gave him plays to
they
look
gave
at.
him like plays with inaccuracies to see if he could fix it or not. Which I'm sure they do that to all their quarterbacks when they screen their quarterbacks.
But he didn't watch the film. He just showed up like talking money, talking like he was already drafted. And that's why he slid so far. Is that all the teams that interviewed him because he was labeled a top 5 talent. He only interviewed with the top 5 guys. He also didn't go to the combine. He had his own combine at Colorado, And then if you draft Shador Sanders and you don't start him and your team is doing bad and you still don't start him, you know that the media is going to pick up on Deion Sanders talking shit about your own team. And so then, should the media, it's gonna make them so much money, but should the media be allowed to take interviews that will instigate more drama?
No. I mean, they're going to, but no.
Why?
Because the last thing these teams want is drama. And, well, the first thing that the headlines, the media, all that stuff the news companies want is drama. Because drama can really make things kind of go haywire sometimes. Like, even in a franchise, like the Russell Wilson trade, he was unhappy. The DK Metcalf trade, there was so much disparity when I was like reading all these things, like, oh, he's not getting traded. Oh, he's getting traded because he says he doesn't like it here. Or false narratives come out of drama as well. So like, you say anything bad, it's kind of like someone's gonna pick up on it.
So then I guess I'll leave us at this. The media's portrayal of our teams, our athletes that we're interested in, or the brands that we're interested in, definitely shape us as an audience's views on everything. After everything we've talked about, what would shape it the most, and is it for the good or is it for the worse?
What would shape it the most? Probably just a lot of media attention. Like if we give, let's say someone does something heinous, I'll just pick a random player.
Really easy. There's been a lot of bad players as we've been talking about.
We're not choosing an actual one. We're just making this up a fantasy scenario.
All right.
Let's say Kaimi Fairbairn, kicker of the Texans, does a terrible.
You just ripped off the Texans kicker? That's insane. You are chronically online, my friend.
But no, that's fantasy football. He owns me, Kaimi Fairbairn.
Nah, Chris Boswell of the Steelers, baby.
Oh my god.
Let's go. I had him and I had the Phillies kicker.
Jake Elliott. He had a down year. But
we started Chris Boswell.
like the negative media attention he would get would be bad for the sport as a whole, because some people will see that and be like, I don't want this guy on my team. I don't want this, and say that ends up being fake. Most of the media outlets that said this happened aren't going to own to their mistakes. They're not being held accountable for this. Most reporters are like, he did this terrible thing, blah 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 blah. That's end all be all, and then sometimes they double down even after they're proven innocent. It's kind of disgusting for reporters.
I'm gonna sit in the villain chair for a second.
Yeah.
And say something that's gonna be probably not nice. Let's say we have two individuals that both do the exact same horrible thing. One's a professional athlete, and one's just a regular Joe Schmo. He's an accountant. He clocks in and goes to work, whatever. They both do the same horrible thing. But the athlete is more publicized because he's the athlete.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that he has responsibility because he has such a public life to keep his private life under wraps so that it doesn't become public? Because nobody cares about the accountant and what he does. So do you think it's fair to the athlete that he's under scrutiny from the media and that if he does anything out of line, it will get publicized?
I mean,
and I'm not saying like we should protect these people. They both did a horrible thing.
Yeah.
So like it's not like I'm like, I'm trying to catch you with something. I'm just curious. I'm just wondering.
I think the athlete he's more inclined to watch what he says and really pay attention to what he does, because that can have bad things happen to him and loved ones around him, like that could ruin reputation for a while, especially in the big world media. Now our Joe Schmo, he has nothing, well, he's going to prison, but he has pretty much nothing to worry about when it comes to the media, unless it's like that heinous that it does get some media attention. But like that NFL athlete, people talk, and when they see it on the media, they're going to text their friends and be like, oh, look at this. You know what I mean? Like,
I guess what I should say is like, if we looked at a crime like what Henry Ruggs or Rashee Rice committed, two very similar things. Just Henry Ruggs was very intoxicated and Rashee Rice wasn't. If we had our Joe Schmo do that,
I think
if Joe Schmo wasn't caught,
accidents happen every day, especially on highways.
Yeah.
And all that. But I think really it doesn't get as much media attention as if Rashee Rice or Henry Ruggs did. Because, people still talk about Henry Ruggs.
True.
Yeah.
True.
Like, this guy, he's probably going to be brought up in, like, a criminal justice class maybe, or, like, a driving class or something, like, further down the road. But he's not going to be, like, constantly in the media. I still hear people talking about Henry Ruggs sometimes.
It's always on my mind.
Yeah.
He to me is the most recent what if.
Yeah.
You have Len Bias from the Celtics who dies of a cocaine overdose in the 60s or the 70s. You have your O.J. Simpson. You have your Derrick Rose. People ironically say Aaron Hernandez, what ifs.
Yeah.
But I think Henry Ruggs is the biggest what if for the current era.
He probably would have been like one of the top 5 receivers in the league right now, and I think the Raiders would not have been as bad as they are now.
No. I don't think they would have kept Jacoby Myers.
I don't think they would have traded for Devontae Adams. I don't think they would have signed Jacoby Myers.
True. Devontae Adams would have stayed a Green Bay Packer.
I don't think that would happen, but I think
With Jordan Love, because I think Devontae would have survived the first year off of Aaron Rodgers.
he got traded before Aaron Rodgers left.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, why am I mixing that up? I thought they were both traded the same year. Well, not traded, but signed and then traded.
No, the year before Aaron Rodgers left, Devontae was out because he wanted a lot of money. The Raiders gave him a lot of money.
There's Devontae Adams now. Is he still a Jet?
He's a Ram.
You're telling me you've got Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, and Devontae Adams in your division?
Yeah.
And you're rolling up with Cooper Kupp and
Revenge game. What is Devontae Adams gonna do? He got his. Okay, I can't say some of that stuff, but he got his old buttocks locked down by a second-year corner last year. What's he gonna do?
dude, Witherspoon is actually fire. So
Dude.
yeah,
Yeah.
you guys are gonna do actually pretty well.
Puka
now that I think
Nacua
about
gets
it.
locked down by Tariq Woolen all the time.
Yeah.
But the second we start running zone coverage on these guys, they're all over the field getting 50 yards a catch, and I'm like, all right, we gotta start running some man coverage here. They're busting our chops.
I didn't make sure I've been in frame this whole time, by the way.
I need to make sure we're still recording.
Still recording. All right, I've been in frame this whole time. Sweet.
We're chilling.
All right, you want to finish this off?
Yeah.
All right. Oh. All right.
Thank you for watching the Will and Nate podcast, proudly sponsored by Tapwater Incorporation.
Love tap water, dude. Oh my god. Probably the best water.
Depends on where you are.
All right. On next episode, we'll discuss what's the best water and where it's from.
And we will be talking about Flint, Michigan. So tune in for next time.
Let's go, dude. All right, let's end that shit.